The Bible is not just one book, but a small library of many literary works penned by countless authors over thousands of years of history. It stands as one of the most profoundly influential books in human history, not only exploring the big questions of our existence, but also inspiring countless individuals to achieve great things, while simultaneously perplexing many others. So, what exactly is the Bible, and how did its story come to be? The Bible originates from the history of the ancient Israelite people. While Israel might at first glance appear similar to any other ancient civilization, a long line of individuals called prophets emerged among them. These prophets viewed Israel's story not merely as an ordinary historical narrative, but as a central part of what God was doing for all humanity. These prophets were not just religious leaders. They were also literary geniuses. They masterfully used the Hebrew language to craft epic narratives, incredibly sophisticated poetry, and were true masters of metaphor and storytelling. They leveraged all these skills to explore life's most complex questions, including life, death, and the human struggle. These texts were produced over an astonishing period, more than 1,000 years. The story begins with Israel's origins in Egypt, then leads to their kingdom with the first temple in Jerusalem. However, they were later conquered by the Babylonians and taken into exile. At a crucial moment in their history, many Israelites returned to their land, rebuilt the Second Temple, and reshaped their identity. It was during this period that the Jewish scriptures began to take the form we have today. In Hebrew, the Jewish Bible is known by the acronym TaNaK, comprising three main parts: T, sometimes called the Law. These are the 5 foundational books recounting Israel's origin story. In, meaning prophets. This section includes historical books that narrate Israel's story from the prophet's point of view, followed by the poetic books of the prophets themselves. K, meaning writings. This is a diverse collection of poetic books, wisdom literature, and other narrative accounts. The Jewish people believe that through all these literary works, God spoke to his people. During the Second Temple period, alongside the TaNaK, many other Jewish writings were produced. These works were also highly valued in Jewish communities, although there were ancient debates about whether some of them should be considered part of their scriptures. The question then arises: why were all these different works written over such a long period by various authors brought together? Because, taken together, these texts tell an epic story of how God is working through this people to bring order and beauty out of the chaos of our world. This entire narrative points towards the hope for a new leader who would come and renew all creation. The TaNaK concludes with this leader never appearing. It's a masterfully compiled work, yet it lacks an ending. A few centuries later, a Jewish prophet appeared on the scene, Jesus of Nazareth. He claimed to be carrying the TaNaK story forward. His followers, known as apostles, composed new literary works about the story of Jesus. They called these Good News. They also formed an account called the Acts of the Apostles about the spread of the Jesus movement outside Israel. And then they circulated letters to different Jesus communities throughout the ancient world. The apostles regarded these writings as the fulfillment of the epic story found in the TaNaK. They also continued the literary genius of the Jewish tradition and believed that God was speaking to his people through these texts. Alongside the scriptures of Israel, this is what we now call the Old Testament and the New Testament. So, what did the early Christians think of the other Second Temple literature, meaning the books not included in the TaNaK or the New Testament? Different groups held varying views on some of these books. But we know they read and valued these texts because they passed them down alongside the Jewish scriptures. The Christian movement has taken various forms over the past 2,000 years. From the very beginning, all Christians recognized the TaNaK and the New Testament as scripture. However, regarding the other books from the Second Temple period, for centuries, much of the Second Temple literature was read as part of the biblical tradition. The Catholic Church eventually officially recognized some books from this collection as deuterocanonical books. Some Orthodox churches used even more books from this Second Temple literature. Then, in the 1500s, during the Protestant Reformation, Protestant Christians wanted to return to the oldest writings of the prophets and apostles, so they accepted only the Old and New Testaments, despite the differences in the number of books included. The core remains that all versions of the Bible contain a unified story of how God interacts with humanity. This leads to the big question: How can a collection of books produced over 1,000 years by all these different authors tell one unified story? This is precisely what the Bible aims to convey, a unified story that leads to Jesus, offering profound wisdom for the modern world. The Bible is not just a collection of disconnected narratives. It's a complex tapestry of stories, poetry, laws, prophecies, and letters, all interwoven to paint a larger picture of God's purpose for the universe and for humanity. It speaks to the nature of creation, the fall of humanity, God's choice of a people through whom he would restore his relationship with all mankind. Every book, every passage, regardless of being written by different authors in different eras, contributes to a consistent overarching theme: God's love, justice, and mercy, and his plan of redemption. From the initial promises to Abraham in the Old Testament to their fulfillment in Jesus in the New Testament, and ultimately to the hope of a completely renewed world. The Bible presents a grand narrative with deep meaning for each of our lives. The Bible invites us not just to read it as a historical or literary work, but also as a divine voice, guiding and challenging us to live a life of meaning and purpose. It is more than just a collection of ancient texts. It is a source of life, a lamp guiding our path, and an invitation to enter into a deep relationship with the Creator.